So let's look a little bit at the pelvic core. A lot of people have been educated on their core, and most people think of their core as their abdominal wall. And really, your abdominals are only 25% of your core. It consists of your pelvic floor muscles on the bottom, the respiratory diaphragm on the top, the deep back and hip muscles, which are at the back of the pelvic core, and the abdominals are at the front. So your abs are really only 25% of your pelvic core. And the deep back and hip muscles are another 25%. The diaphragm at the top, obviously, if you're alive and breathing, then the top of the pelvic core is functioning. Although some people, their diaphragm isn't really functioning optimally. They struggle. They use a lot of accessory muscles when they're breathing. So it may not be functioning correctly. And believe it or not, your diaphragm can affect the pelvic floor muscles. Okay, it can affect how it's loading. Is it loading symmetrically? It can actually have an effect. And then, of course, the pelvic floor muscles on the bottom, which is the whole focus of the class. But I wanted you to see that other areas of the pelvic core can affect pelvic floor function. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to all the aspects of what creates a nice, healthy pelvic function, right? So here's the fascia, and fascia is a fascinating structure. I teach a lot of melt classes, and that directly affects the fascia. But movement, loading muscles, doing a lot of other things can affect your fascia. You could be dehydrated and your fascia will be very impacted in a very negative way if you're dehydrated. So it's really important that you're hydrating yourself. And I wanted you to see this fascia because this is another aspect of your body, your anatomy, that impacts pelvic floor function. Because again, this impacts the pelvic core, which ultimately impacts the pelvic floor, right? So you can see in the back, you've got your thoracolumbar fascia, and that creates this very tough, fibrous, stabilizing force in the low back to help protect you during times of working hard, right? Lots of bending and lifting and those kind of things. And you can see how the gluteus maximus is directly attached to that thoracolumbar fascia. So the power source, which is the glutes, will be impacted and will impact that thoracolumbar fascia because it's being loaded like the muscles are. It doesn't act like a muscle, but it will get loaded when the muscles are loaded above and below that attach to it. And then in the front, you've got the abdominal aponeurosis. So that is that's going to give this sort of strength, this structural strength and stability to the abdominal wall. And again, it's something that does get affected by muscle function, and it affects muscle